Storytime about the boy across the street who used to stalk me. So a little background information. My parents and I moved into a new house that was literally 5 minutes from where I used to live. But I went to private school, and almost all the other kids in my town went to the public school. So I didn't really know a lot of the kids in my town. Well, a week after we moved in, our neighbors across the street invited us to a barbecue. While we were there, I started talking to our neighbor's older son, and him and I started to get along really well. Like, in a flirty way. Their older son was a senior, I was a sophomore, and their younger son was a freshman. Well, I kind of talked to the younger son, but he was just like giving me really weird vibes. So for the next few weeks, I started hanging out with their older son a lot, and we would talk all the time. Well, the one day whenever I went over their house, it was super weird. His younger brother kept saying, "Oh, I think I know you from somewhere. Like, I swear I know you." And I'm just like, okay. Well, the one morning I was waiting outside for my mom to pick me up because she worked night shifts and she would just grab me and then take me to my school. And I saw him in his window watching me like for part 2. Part 2 about the boy across the street who used to stalk me. So like I said, I saw him watching me outside his window, but I didn't want to overthink it, so I was just like, no, maybe he's looking at something else. Well, this all started a month after I moved in. Well, it started happening more frequently, so then I told his older brother. We're just gonna call the younger brother Mac. So he talked to Mac, and then everything was fine for a week. Just a little information real quick. For the public school, the bus would arrive at 7:40. My private school started at 7 o'clock. So my mom would come and get me at 6:15 because my school was kind of far away. So like I said, it was a week later. Every morning that I would go outside to wait for my mom, Mac would be standing on his porch watching me. Oh, but it gets worse. So one night I was in my bedroom, right? And this is like some scary movie shit. I kept seeing something run past my window. My bedroom was on the first floor. So I told my dad about it and he put cameras outside. Well, Mac's older brother told me that Mac was always interested in my life. So me being a smart-ass bitch, I told his older brother that our cameras didn't work, like for part 3. Part 3 about the boy that lived across the street who used to stalk me. So like I said, I told his older brother that our cameras didn't work anymore, knowing that he would tell Mac. Because he had it in his head for some reason that Mac wasn't obsessed with me. And the reason why I told him our cameras didn't work was because Mac was watching while the cameras were being set up outside. And after that, everything stopped. Except he would still be outside every single morning on his fucking porch watching me. So the one night while I'm sleeping, I wake up to some noise right outside my window. And my bed was on the same wall as the window, so I could see who was right outside my window, but they couldn't see me. Well, I look, and guess who the fuck it is? It's Mac trying to get inside of my fucking window. So I quietly call my dad, and it's like 3 in the morning. So I tell my dad what's going on. So he goes outside and nobody's there. Well, the next day we check the cameras. There's footage of him jerking off outside my window, trying to break into my room with a fucking crowbar. Luckily, I was staying at a friend's that night. Taking pictures of me outside my window. So we showed his parents. Then we moved and they sent him to a mental hospital.
Storytime about how I married my father. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, and trigger warning for this. My mom and dad got pregnant with me when they were only 16. They were both young and irresponsible. My mom wanted to keep me, but my dad didn't. My dad basically broke up with my mom and told her that if she wanted to have me, she would have to do it on her own. So my mom did. Luckily, my grandma helped her out a lot and she was able to stay in school. As a baby, my dad would visit me every now and then, but he wasn't really involved in my life as far as my mom says. Here's a little backstory on my dad. My dad grew up in a really strict family and he was expected to graduate and become a doctor. So that's pretty much exactly what he did. During the time that he was in college, he really didn't come see my mom or I, but of course my mom and him kept in contact. When my dad, or should I say husband, graduated from medical school, he finally got married. And of course this was hard for my mom because she thought eventually they would get back together. By the time my dad remarried, I was about 12 years old. I didn't have a relationship with him at the time and it didn't bother me. I was so busy with friends in school I never really thought about him. Not until I turned 14. This is when things started changing and I told my mom that I really wanted to talk to my dad. So he and I started talking on the phone and eventually he came to visit me. But things started changing when I turned 19. He actually ended up getting a divorce and he and I would spend more and more time together alone. Part 2. Storytime about how I married my father. Disclaimer, this is not my story time and trigger warning for this. When I turned 19 is when my dad and I started spending more time together alone. Or should I say my husband. Keep in mind, I really didn't have a relationship during my teen years. We only spoke on the phone a few times and he would visit every now and then, but not a lot. When I turned 19, I was living in college and I was closer to my dad. So I decided to reach out to him and ask him if he wanted to have dinners every now and then, and he said yes. The first time we went out to dinner, we actually had a lot of fun, and it really didn't feel like I was hanging out with my dad. It was more like I was hanging out with a friend. We just didn't have that father-daughter dynamic. We would meet up almost every single weekend, and our relationship was actually very friendly. We would make each other laugh and talk about everything. And this is when we realized that we had a lot in common. Eventually, he asked me if I was dating anyone, and I told him I wasn't. When I got home, I started realizing that I wasn't thinking about my dad like a dad, I was thinking about him like a man. So the next time I saw him, I decided to tell him that. And that's when he told me that he didn't see me like a daughter either. It took a lot of courage for me to tell him this, so that's when things started to really change between us. Every time we would hang out after that, it was more like a date. We started getting to know each other, and he would hold my hand every now and then. And a few weeks later, we had our first kiss. Part 3 is up! Story time about how I married my father. Disclaimers is not my story time, and trigger warning for this. After our first kiss, everything changed. We didn't think of each other as father-daughter. And of course, our relationship began to get more serious. And one thing we kept discussing was, should we tell our family or should we just keep it secret? So we kept it secret for almost a full year. I told my mom that I was dating someone, but I wouldn't tell her who it was. Also, a little side note, my mom and dad didn't have any contact between them at this time. My mom was actually married to someone else, and they were very happy. But for me, it was getting to the point where I needed to tell somebody. Because yes, part of me felt that this was really wrong, but the other part of me felt that it was just right. I had never met anybody like him before. So I decided to tell my grandma, and she nearly had a heart attack. She called my mom right away and told her the truth. That's when my mom came over and we talked for a few hours. I explained to them everything, and they still didn't agree with me. My mom called my dad, and they got into an epic fight. I was totally expecting this, but it really hurt. My mom and grandma were totally against the relationship. That's when they told me that they would never speak to me again if I kept the relationship going. A few months later, we decided to get married privately, and I didn't tell my mom. She actually found out through my best friend, who was totally against our relationship as well, and she pretty much tells my mom everything I tell her. It's been 2 years since we got married, and part of me still feels guilty and like I did something really wrong. But now it's getting even worse because I actually met someone who's my age and is not related to me, but I don't have the heart to break up with my husband/dad. I told my mom about this new guy, and she really wants me to get a divorce. I feel like all along I was just looking for the love of a man because I didn't get that from my dad. Now that I'm seeing someone else, I'm realizing how wrong what I did was. But I don't want to break my dad/husband's heart. How can I fix this? What should I do?
Am I wrong for telling a friend the real reason why a coworker wants to date him? I, 24 female, have a friend from work, 26 male, Ben. Over the years, coworkers told me that Ben was interested in me, but I brushed it off. When I met Ben, I had a boyfriend who is now my husband. Ben met him and was even invited to our wedding, so the thought of him liking me was ridiculous. I ended up confronting him about it, and he said that he did like me at first, but stopped once he realized I was taken. My husband knows this and is totally fine with it. I never saw Ben as anything more than a friend. 2 months ago, I caught a coworker, Kat, 23 female, crying in the parking lot after work. I asked what was wrong, and she told me that her boyfriend broke up with her and left the country after they found out she was pregnant, and she insisted on keeping the baby. Kate is white with blue eyes and blonde hair, and so is her ex. Most people in my country are tan and have brown eyes with black hair. This info was important later on. After the breakup, Kate went out on dates every day. The guys had one thing in common: blue eyes, blonde hair. I joked that she must have a type, but she told me that she was looking for someone to father her baby, so they had to look similar to her ex so the baby could pass as theirs. This horrified me, but it wasn't my place to tell her anything. A month ago, Ben and I had lunch where he told me he started dating Kat. Ben is the only guy in our office with blonde hair and blue eyes. I told him dating Kat might not be the best idea. After lunch, I went up to Kate and told her what she was doing is wrong and asked her not to do this to my friend. She laughed it off and said it's okay, he won't find out. I stayed quiet for a while, but eventually told Ben he should seriously stop dating Kate. He said he figured I'll try to break them up because I'm jealous. Man, I was disgusted before finally saying to not come crying to me when he realizes Kate is only dating him so another man's baby could have a father. I stopped talking to Ben shortly after, and everything was relatively peaceful in the office. That was until Kate announced she's pregnant. I could see the color drain from Ben's face as he looked in my direction. A huge fight broke out between the two of them after Ben demanded a paternity test while Kate tried to convince him it wasn't necessary. Kate called me later screaming that I ruined her life, so my guess is they broke up. The thing is, they really do deserve each other, so I'm starting to wonder whether I made the right decision by telling Ben the truth. If I hadn't, they probably would have gotten married and the baby would have had a loving father to look after him. Me personally, I would want to know. So I'd be thankful for someone like you if people knew and didn't tell me. If you're my friend, you would tell me so.
I never meant to make it by myself. Stuck between the ego and the devil and yourself. Got these habits, but I'll never ask for help. Just following my feelings, cause I love the way you felt. I can give you love, and it can give you time. You can make you smile, and I will make you cry. The only things in common when we talk about the past. I will be your first, and he will be the last. How you think about him when you're kissing me now? Feeling like it's been away. There's no doubt good in the word goodbye, but there's so much more to stay. So blame it all on me, darling. See I let you down. Blame it all on me, darling. See I'm never around. Cause you know
Am I the asshole for my petty response to my boyfriend's purposeful incompetence about chores? My boyfriend has started pretending to be bad at basic life shit, like dishes and laundry. Like he can't do it, so I do it. I felt pretty frustrated with that and told him straight up that I know he didn't forget how to clean since he moved in with me. He was always very competent living alone, and I don't appreciate him forgetting how to do chores. I said that when I asked him to do dishes and he refused and refused until he finally did them wrong, that I was not stupid. He said that he was trying his best and I was wrong for saying he was trying to manipulate me, and that from his perspective, I asked him to do something and he did it the best he could, and I kept at him because it wasn't up to my impossibly high standards, so he couldn't win. And he wanted me to believe him when he says he is trying. Anyways, this might be petty, but I decided to give believing him a try. So he had bleach stained my favorite little black dress. Instead of getting mad, next time he had a family event, I put it on. He asked me if I was really going to wear that. It looked messy. I said that I loved that dress and understand accidents happen, so I wasn't mad or upset. It had bleach spots actually. I thought it looked kind of cool. He said he really thought it looked bad, and I said if he wants, he could Sharpie on the white spots real quick in the Uber. It ended up looking even worse.
He did it. Wow. Why did he just have a Sharpie in the Uber?
Another time we were having dinner and he had done the dishes, but put some of the cups and bowls in the dishwasher upside down, so they filled with dirty dishwater.
Oh my gosh, that is a pet peeve of mine,
It's so
actually.
disgusting.
Yeah.
I took those cups and bowls, dumped them out in the sink, but didn't wash them further and served his food in them. He said that it was dirty, and I was like, quote, they just came out of the dishwasher. It's just water. It's fine. He said that no, it was disgusting. And I said it was really no biggie. I was getting over my impossibly high cleanliness standards, and I really didn't think it was that gross. The last time I had cooked for a work party of his. After cooking, the dish needed to cool for about 30 minutes, then be refrigerated. I had plans with my friends that night, and I asked him to put the dish away after it cooled. He forgot. The next morning, he noticed the dish was never refrigerated. I said it was fine, it was just a mistake, and it would probably be fine to eat. There wasn't a lot of meat in it anyways. He got frustrated and said that you can't serve meat left out overnight, even if it is only a little. And I said, oh, I think it should be okay. Stuff happens. He stopped being so lazy about chores after he realized I seemed totally okay with leaving stuff done badly and that he'll be living with it. But I feel a little petty for having been dishonest about it. Am I the asshole for being petty?
Justified asshole. If you are going to insist that you don't know how to do something, what would you do if I wasn't here?
Yeah, what did you do before me?
What did you do before me?